So again, this is Christina Anderson from Wisconsin Land & Water. This is the third part of our 4-part series of groundwater webinar series, and we're happy to have Beth Finzer and Nicki Clayton from the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, and they're going to talk to you a little bit about how and where to find data and reports on Wisconsin's public water systems and other water usages, water quantity monitoring statewide, and the presentation will also include an overview of the types of public water systems in the state and the resources to learn more about the water quality and quantity. So thanks you guys for joining us, and go ahead and take it away.
Hi everyone, good morning. This is Beth Finzer, and I'd really like to thank Christina Anderson and Wisconsin Land & Water for giving us an opportunity to talk to you guys today and briefly describe some of the resources that the DNR has available. I don't anticipate that we're going to take an entire hour to go through some of the resources. And like I said, I think we're going to go through them kind of very quickly. And since we're going to be doing that, please, if you do have follow-up questions, our contact information will be provided at the end, and we would love to get questions, comments, from you after the presentation. So just to give you a little information about myself before we get started, my name, once again, is Beth Finzer. I work primarily with transient non-community systems, and we're going to talk more about what that means during the presentation. And I'd like Nicki to introduce herself as well.
Thanks, Beth. I'm Nicki Clayton. I'm in the water use section in DG, and I'm a water supply specialist. I primarily work on permitting Great Lakes water users and work on diversions of Great Lakes water application.
Okay. So as you might guess, the drinking water and groundwater program here at the DNR, our primary task is to protect the quality and quantity of the state's water resources and essentially ensure that people are drinking safe water. So at the DNR, the Bureau of Drinking Water and Groundwater falls under the Environmental Management Division. This is a division that also is home to the Office of Great Water, Air Management, Water Quality, Waste and Materials Management, Remediation, and Redevelopment. And the Bureau of Drinking Water and Groundwater is divided up into several different programs. We have the Public Water Supply Program, which is the program that I work in. We have Public Water Engineering. We have Private Water Supply, Water Use, and Groundwater. So in the state, the Drinking Water Groundwater Program is administered really through our 5 districts across the state. Each of the districts has staff dedicated to providing services to the public water supplies systems and to private water supply. Nicki can explain a little bit about what water use does.
Sure. So we're a fairly newer section. We were formed about 10 years ago after the signing of the Great Lakes Compact in 2008. Our primary responsibility is managing statewide water withdrawals of groundwater and surface water sources. Withdrawals are sources such as wells or surface water intakes on a property with the capacity to withdraw at least 100,000 gallons per day. So that's about a 70 gallon per minute pump running all day. We review high capacity well reviews, which includes looking at construction standards, groundwater quality, and NRA 20 requirements. And then under the structure of the Great Lakes Compact, we have about 15,000 sources in the state that are registered with us, about 14,000 wells, and just over 1,000 surface water sources. And we require these sources to annually report their monthly water usage to us. They pay annual water use fees. And then unique to the Great Lakes Basin is our water use permitting program. We also, which I don't have on this slide, are responsible for issuing water loss approvals and then reviewing Great Lakes diversion applications, such as Waukesha's recent requests for Lake Michigan water, and more recently, the City of Racine's request. We're kind of unique that we don't have our own, statewide staff, so we really depend on The others, county staff and the other public and private water staff to help us inform of water supply issues.
I'm having trouble with my mouse here. Thanks. Oops. Okay, so in the drinking water program, this includes public water supply and then engineering. So every year, just if you wanted to learn more about the public water supply systems in the state, we publish an annual report that captures how we're doing and the performance of our public water supply systems. Are we in compliance, things like that. You can find the report online. Like I said, it's an annual report. Some of the highlights from the 2017 report is that, out of the systems that we monitored, 99% of those public water supply systems met the safe drinking water standards. So that's quite an achievement. Most common contaminants that we find at public water supply systems are nitrate, bacteria, radionuclides, and arsenic. And along with all the monitoring that we do, we also conducted 2,600 sanitary surveys and 7,100 annual site visits at public water supply systems. So those numbers might start to give you an idea of how many public water supply systems we have in the state. So, and right here you'll see, I don't know if you can tell or not, but the orange bar at the very top of the graph in the #1 position, that is Wisconsin. So Wisconsin is #1 in the United States in terms of how many public water supply systems are in the state. We have 11,419 public water supply systems. This number will change, but not by very much, as maybe systems close or we gain more systems. So this is, with that many systems, there's actually a lot of work to do in the program. So, oops, keep hitting the wrong button. Just to give you a little bit more information about what kind of systems we're talking about. In Wisconsin, we're kind of unique in that we rely heavily on groundwater as the source of our drinking water system, source of water to our drinking water systems. In the state, there are only 57 drinking water systems that rely on surface water. And I think most of you can probably guess some of what systems those might be. So this would include Milwaukee and Green Bay. So almost 2/3 of Wisconsin's population that relies on public drinking water are drinking groundwater. And now one of the most common questions that we deal with is what is a public water supply system? Or if a new business opens, they might want to know are they a public water supply system? So a public water supply system is a facility that has at least 15 service connections, or regularly serves an average of 25 individuals daily, at least 60 days out of the year. So, and after we made that determination that a facility is a public water supply system, the next question is, well, what kind of public water supply system am I? We have two broad categories of public water supply. The first is community water supply. And I think most of you are probably familiar with this. If you live in an urban area, you're probably connected to a community water system. Within community water systems, we have two types. We categorize them as municipal or other than municipal. So here I live in Madison. Madison, the water I get is from Madison Water, and it's a municipal system. If I were to live out in the country, maybe in an apartment, that facility might fall under the category of other than municipal, or an OTM. Our second category of public water supply system is basically anything that's not a community water system, right? So these non-community systems, once again, we have two types. We have a non-transient, non-community water system. We call these NNs, and these regularly serve at least 25 of the same persons over 6 months of the year. And some of these might, you typically find these as churches, small businesses, things like that. And then lastly, our smallest type of public water supply system is a transient non-community. We call these a TN. These facilities serve at least 25 people at least 60 days out of the year. They're not always the same 25 people, right? So to give you an idea of the breakdown of systems in the state, you'll see that the majority of our facilities are transient non-community systems. So we have roughly 9,500 of these. A transient non-community system, let's see, you'll see that the majority of them actually are maybe campgrounds, motel resorts, taverns, and churches. Right? So they tend to be small. To help the drinking water groundwater program provide oversight to these 9,500 facilities, DNR contracts primarily with county health departments. We do have 1 or 2 county zoning departments involved helping us with this, but we have contracts with county health departments to conduct sampling and sanitary surveys at these facilities. So the counties are out collecting typically an annual nitrate and bacteria sample at these businesses. And they're also doing a sanitary survey once every 5 years. And they're also performing an annual site visit, which is a kind of an abbreviated sanitary survey when they go out to collect their annual samples. So the county health departments together cumulatively provide oversight to 6,500 TN systems in the state. And through the county health department program and involvement with the DG, we've been able to drastically reduce our monitoring and reporting violations for these facilities. So monitoring is a big part of our program. EPA requires monitoring for a broad array of different contaminants. At the TN systems, we only monitor for nitrate and bacteria. Typically, it's once a year. There is a one-time nitrate requirement at the startup of a facility. TN systems, since the population is considered to be transient, meaning that they're not consuming the water over a long term, we're only monitoring what we consider acute contaminants, which is bacteria and nitrate. And then at non-community, non-transient systems, since this is not a transient population, the monitoring requirements are more inclusive of potential problems. Inorganic chemicals, volatile organic chemicals, synthetic organic chemicals, lead and copper. And at community systems, we monitor for everything, right? So when we think about all the monitoring that goes on in the state, since we're monitoring at 11,360 public water supply wells, this monitoring can tell you a lot about the quality of groundwater in the state. So the data can be used for things such as the environmental public health tracking, which is put out by DHS, and it could also potentially maybe be included in county land and water plans. Right? Uh-oh, let's get that. Oh no, Sorry guys, my little arrows are have migrated off of the page. So what I wanted to show you here is where to go to find data, right? So if you go to the DNR website and you type in drinking water, you'll come to this page. And what you want to do then is go to water quality data, right? So, and here you're going to, anyway, so here you're going to look for either find public water systems or find contaminants in public water supply systems. One thing that you're going to maybe want to be aware of is that you'll have a choice of selecting the type of facility that you're going to be looking at. It could be municipal, other than municipal, non-transient, and transient. And then you also have a variety of choices for status of this facility. And this status refers to if a facility is active or if it's no longer in operation and it's no longer a public water supply system. So those are things to consider when you do your search. I'm trying to advance my slides here and I'm having. Okay, so when I'm looking for public water supply systems, I've already populated my query. I've selected all 4 types. I've selected the status being active, and I'm going to look for facilities in Portage County, right? And over here I have a map of, we're going to get to this later, but this is a map that's showing wellhead protection areas in Portage County, right? So I went ahead and I put together the results of my search so that you guys could see what format you can expect to see the data. And in Portage County, we have, let's see, 5 municipal systems and roughly the same number of OTM systems, right? And then here is the population that being served by these facilities. So next, I'm going to look for contaminants in the public water supply systems. One thing to maybe be aware of is that when we do monitoring, we collect our samples at different points in a public water supply system. So when you're doing your search, you need to decide what parameter or parameters you're going to look for and what type of sample you're going to look for. I tend to look for compliance and check samples. So compliance samples are those routine samples that we collect, you know, for the TN systems. That's going to be their annual sample requirement. And the check sample is a sample that's collected when there's an indication that a contaminant or parameter is over the MCL, or our safe drinking water standard. So samples might be collected in the distribution system, or at the entry point, or at the well. So a sample collected at the well represents untreated groundwater, and a sample collected at the entry point is post any treatment, but prior to the distribution. Most of our facilities do not, most of our TN facilities, transient non-community systems, do not have treatment. All of our nitrates and our inorganic parameters are collected at the entry point. And then samples that are collected at the distribution, within the distribution system would include things like bacteria. All right, so here is an example of the search that I'm doing. I'm going to be looking for nitrate in public water supply systems in Portage County. So I've selected my contaminants. I've selected all system types. County is Portage, and I'm only going to be looking at active facilities. And the sample dates, so I'm looking for samples collected from 2013 to 2018. And my sample types are going to be compliance and raw water. So I selected raw water just in case any of the facilities might have treatment installed. Okay. So next. My query resulted in 1,600 data points, and I went ahead and I put the data into a little pivot chart here. So I'm showing you results from Amherst Waterworks, right? So what we can see here is that Amherst Waterworks, it is a municipal community system. If I can turn on my pointer here. It's a municipal system, right? This is going to be the well number, AR332. This is where the sample was collected, and it's a compliance sample, right? So we can see that at Amherst, they have 3 wells. And if you see, the safe drinking water standard for nitrate is 10, right? So Amherst had one sample back in 2015 that was over the safe drinking water standard. But if you look, this is a raw water sample. So this was prior to any treatment at the facility. So if we wanted to learn more about this, we can go into all right. So, maybe you want to go to this. So this is another example of a spreadsheet for, this would be for Almond Bancroft Public Schools. So you can display the data. Once you download the data, you can display the data any way that you like. I like to do it, by system type, by system name, and then with information on the wells. So to learn more about the wells, you will go to, once again, back to water quality data. Back to water quality data here, and then to our groundwater retrieval network. And once you get into the groundwater retrieval network, you can pull up information on that well. So I'm now looking at the well that had the raw water sample that was over the safe drinking water standard. And we can see that the well, it's a shallow well. The bottom is at 60 feet and it's cased to 25 feet, right? And if I want to know more about the well, I can click down here on public drinking water that's highlighted in blue. And this will tell me what I can find out here is just to confirm that that well does have treatment installed on it. So you can see that ion exchange is being used on this well and for the purpose of inorganics removal. So this is for removing the nitrate. So next, some of you might say, okay, now I have a list of all of my public water supply systems in my county. Do I have any idea on where exactly these public water supply systems are? We can't give you the exact locations of the wells, but I would direct you maybe to our surface water data viewer. And some of you have probably already used it. But if you go to the surface water data viewer, you're going to look under permits and determination. And you're going to click source water protection areas. I've highlighted that there in my red circles. So here, I've taken a screenshot of Amherst and of the wellhead protection areas for those public drinking water wells. The wellhead protection areas are the areas circled in gold, or maybe a rectangle looking area. So most of our public water supply systems, they'll be represented here on the map, right? And one last thing is that if you remember from Ken's talk, you know, he reviewed the hydrologic cycle, and you know, that groundwater moves and eventually comes to a discharge point, maybe a stream. So I looked up, you know, I know I've got some nitrate issues in this area. So I went ahead and I looked up information on the watershed in this area. This is the Wapaco River watershed. And you can see that here it's well known that groundwater and surface water interact, and that land use activities do have an impact on groundwater. So with that, I'm going to let Nicki talk to you about water quantity.
Thanks, Beth. So just switching a little bit to quantity here, a little history of tracking water quantity data in Wisconsin. We have high capacity wells in the state have been approved since the mid 40s. And we've been tracking municipal public water supply systems data since the 1980s. So that's like monthly reporting data. We also have well construction reports and logs that are recorded in the DNR databases since 1988. And more recently, with the compact requirements, we started tracking, again, like I said earlier, surface water sources. Previously, we had just tracked municipal systems, and then those that had permitted discharges. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the tools that we have in the water use program to help you find some water quantity data. If you go to dnr.wisconsin.gov and then search in water use, or you can get to us through the main page like Beth had. We have our own little button that says water use. You can come to our topic page, and in the right-hand corner, you'll see something that says maps and data. I'll talk a little bit about the water quantity data viewer next, but I just want to highlight that there's an application search that you can use to find high capacity well applications, like what their status is, if they're still being reviewed or if they've been recently approved. And then we have a high capacity well and surface water withdrawal search. So this search engine helps users find one of the 15,000 sources that we have registered. You'd go here and you can click whether you want registered groundwater sources, registered surface water sources, or both. In this case, I just I'm doing a sample here. Click to registered groundwater sources, and then in Brown County. So then once I did that, this comes up, and it's basically an outline of what recent high capacity wells we have either approved, or all of them just basically listed in brown. You can use the little tool up in the left-hand corner, the export to Excel button, to export the data just like you could with Beth's tools. Or on the right-hand corner over here, there is a button called View Water Use. In the View Water Use, you can get monthly pumpage reports that are available for sources, depending if they used the well and when the well was drilled. Older wells will have reliable data that goes back to 2011. And then we have reports for about 95 or greater percent of all the sources in the state. So we have a pretty good tracking record of those that have water use sources registered that they're reporting to us annually. And then for the second thing is View WCR. That's the well construction report. Those are well construction reports that have been drilled after 1988, and I have a sample of those in a few slides. So we have a few tools we've developed fairly recently, like in the last year, and I know some of you on the line have heard about the water quantity data viewer. I'll be talking about that a little bit today. And then we also have a well driller viewer. So the water quantity data viewer was developed as a tool for the public to search in one place, basically, where we have water quantity data in Wisconsin. This pulls in data from DNR, the State Geological Survey, USGS, and then any county and volunteer data that we might get into SWIMS, so into the DNR database SWIMS. We also highlight groundwater protection features such as trout streams, outstanding and exceptional resource waters, and then springs. And in addition, we have high capacity well locations. It's limited access to the exact location, but it does go down the section level. And then for the well driller viewer, this was developed primarily to assist drillers and landowners, but has access to the well construction reports after 1988, and then also proximity to remediation sites, landfills, and special casing areas, and then also highlights those groundwater protection features that were on the water quantity data viewer. So again, just if you want to easily search this, you can even do this in Google, but if you go to our main site, there is a search key and you can just type in water quantity data or well driller viewer, and you'll get the link to get to these pages. So instead of just going through this and trying to get to the internet and go through this today, I just did screenshots similar to what Beth did, because I think with any of these viewers, I've been on these kind of presentations before, and it's a lot of information, and you really just need to kind of play with the data to learn how to use them. But this is the water quantity data viewer. It's very similar to the surface water data viewer if you've used that. A few differences might be like where we have the tools for identifying and zooming in and panning, for example. And then the layers specific to this data quantity viewer are things like status of well applications and approvals, where are those high capacity withdrawals, what kind of data do we have from USGS and then DNR, and under DNR I'll go into this, but that's where you'll find county and SWIMS data. And then we also have that springs layer, groundwater protection features, and then just general base maps. So one of the things that we found when we were looking at, when we were doing quantity reviews, we'd have to go separately to the USGS site and then to the state survey site. And so we wanted it all in one view. So here we have a sample of USGS water levels and stream flow. You can see that we have groundwater monitoring. These are levels primarily. We have historical groundwater, so sites that aren't active but have collectively had elevations taken, glacial or bedrock samples, and then what I just highlighted here is you can go and click on one of these upside down triangles, and this is a groundwater level well. And then once you do that, this little pop-up box will come up, and you can go right to the data here. So you'll see the name of the well. It's a USGS groundwater level well. It has 62 measurements of groundwater since 1994 through January of 2018. And then there's a link right to the raw data that you can download. And then we also have that surface watering, the stream flow sites, so those are any USGS gauging stations as well as lake level gauges. So then if you click on the layer for water quantity monitoring, we have base flow data, so that's data that's taken instantaneously from streams across the state. And then we have a program that we currently fund UW Stevens Point to do, where they go out to about 40 to 50 sites per year and grab these base flow sites for us. That all gets entered into SWIMS, as well as any data collected by DNR, UW, or counties or volunteers. And again, as long as we have that quantity data put into SWIMS, it can be shown on this viewer. So the viewer is only as good as the data that gets put into it. So we encourage you, if you are collecting this type of data, to contact us. We've worked a lot with staff in the central sands that are collecting base flow data to get their data into SWIMS, and we encourage you to do the same if you're collecting that sort of data and it's not currently in SWIMS. So again, you can click on a triangle here and find out basically, you know, the data. It's very similar to the other one, 25 total observations here, and then you can go directly to the SWIMS data. Another thing I want to highlight is that recently we funded a springs monitoring project with Beloit College and the state survey, and they went out and monitored over 1,000 features, spring features, and came up with about 375 springs statewide, and then we map those out here. So this is important. You can go to the layer, same kind of concept here. You use your identify tool, and it will come up. We'll say when it was surveyed, what the cubic feet per second of the spring is, and that's springs. And then also I just want to mention the groundwater protection features. We primarily use these internally when we're doing our high capacity well reviews to look at distances to trout streams, surveyed springs that are greater than 1 cubic feet per second, and then outstanding exceptional resource waters. Lastly, we have our layer of well applications and approvals and high capacity withdrawal locations. This is a little messy because this part of the state is the central sands, and we can only go to the section level, so it gets a little tricky with showing this data. But you can look at boxes, and those in green will be wells that we've approved in the last 30 days. We have red boxes, which are those wells that are pending review. Yellow are approved wells that are not yet drilled. So we've approved them in recent years, but the owner decided for some reason not to drill them yet. And then we also have the high capacity well locations, surface water locations. And the unique thing about this is because we do it on a section basis. For example, when you highlight this one, this yellow one, it will bring up the box, and then you'll see up in the right-hand corner here that there's actually 5 records. So you can click through the arrow and find each owner of a well in that general area, and then it will tell you just a very basic idea of what's going on here, but then you can view additional details, and that will give you things such as the pump capacity, the max approvals, and other things that you want to know about your high capacity well. Lastly is the well driller viewer, and the well driller viewer was developed primarily to, like I said, to help well drillers and landowners have access to well construction reports and locations of key layers that they might need to look at. It's important too to note that this is a great tool to combine with GRIN and other water quality databases, and then you can look at more features of the well, and then compare that, to distances to other wells and water quality. So again, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this because I think you just need to play around with it if you're curious. But this is a well driller viewer. If you open up layers on the bottom, these are the layers that we show on here. We have special casing areas, landfill areas, remediation sites. And I think this is the key here is the well construction reports. And these are post 1988. So if you go to the kind of salmon colored button here, this just like our quantity viewer will bring up this little box. It will tell you basic well depth, casing depth, static water level if we have it, and then when the well was completed. And then you can click on the well construction report, and it will bring up a well construction report. So in general, here's your well construction report. What you'll have here is addresses up in the left-hand corner. You'll have general area of the well up in the right-hand corner. You can figure out how deep the well is. The geology is also here that you can look at, figure out what formations it's in, and then the date that it was installed. So those are all helpful tools.
So that was, this is Beth again. So that was kind of a really quick overview of the data resources that we have available. And I'm sorry for the technical difficulty with some of the slides. If you do have questions, I would be happy to try to help answer those questions. Here's my contact information. You can also find local regional contacts. If you go to our drinking water page, then look under public water systems. There is my business, a public water system. That'll bring you to a page with a lot of really useful information. And at the very bottom is, who do I contact for assistance? Click on that, and that'll take you to our DNR drinking water and groundwater staff contacts. And those are going to be the people in your area listed by county who work with the various type of public water supply systems.
Yeah, and we also, this is Nicki, in the water use section on our site, we do have a hotline. It's called the water use hotline, and you can call. There's someone on the phones all day long, and we help just answer water quantity issue questions. So feel free to use that as well if you have questions.
Great, thank you guys very much. And if anybody else has any questions right now, feel free to use that chat bar on the GoToMeeting toolbar. At the very bottom, there's chat, and feel free to ask any questions there, or you can unmute yourself and ask a question.
Christina, someone just asked, where do I find arsenic data? So we're going to answer that.
Great.
Okay, so that would be, I'm going to see if I can use the highlighter here. So to find arsenic data, we would do the same thing. I showed how we would find data for nitrate. So to find data for arsenic, you're going to go here to water quality data, and that's going to take you to that page where we looked for. First, we looked for public water supply systems. Maybe Nicki can take us back to it. And then we used the same page to look for contaminants. So you would do a contaminant search for arsenic instead of, say, nitrate. But you can also email me, and I can do maybe better instructions. Sorry.
Yeah, we can go back there eventually. Right
Yep.
there, right?
Right here. So find contaminants in public water systems. And so instead of right here, you'll see that the contaminant, that we looked for was nitrate. You can select arsenic instead. I think it's a really useful tool, and I hope you guys find it, you're able to use it as well.
Yeah, Beth, do you want to just mention if they are working in an area that they're starting to think a little bit more about groundwater monitoring and want to do a little assessment of their county, there are opportunities to get locations just to contact you and go through that system?
That's correct. We are able to share exact locations of wells with county organizations. There's some paperwork to fill out. It's sensitive material. So like I said, yeah, just fill out the paperwork and contact me. Thanks, Christina.
Thanks. Are there any other questions out there? Okay. Well, thank you guys very much for joining us. And if anybody has questions, again, contact me. There's kind of a lot of information through some of our work groups, and with my work with Beth and the DNR folks, we'll probably try to continue to keep teaching everybody through publications and webinars on how to access data. And if anybody else needs help pulling pulling anything, please feel free to contact me or Beth, and we can help you access some of this information. Please follow up with Nicki as well. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you, Christina.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.